200,000 years ago, the world had one goal for you: kill you. Lions saw you as dinner. Rivers saw you as a drowning waiting to happen. Your own body saw you as a walking infection risk. And the sky above you decided when you ate and when you starved. No claws, no fangs, no fur thick enough to survive a single cold night alone. By every rule of nature, we should not be here. And yet, somehow, we are. This is not a story about strength. It's a story about the strangest, most unlikely tricks a soft, slow, clawless animal ever used to stay alive. Some of these tricks sound insane. All of them are true. Start with the predators because they started with us. Lions, hyenas, leopards, and saber-toothed cats all hunted the same grasslands early humans called home. A single human alone was an easy meal, so the first trick wasn't a weapon. It was numbers. Early humans traveled in tight groups because a predator rarely attacks a crowd. The very old and the very young stayed at the center. The strongest stayed at the edges, watching. This simple shape saved more lives than any spear ever did. Then came fire, and fire changed everything. No predator on Earth walks toward flame. A single fire could turn a helpless group into an untouchable one. Fire also meant something stranger. It meant humans could finally sleep. Every other primate on Earth sleeps in trees, hidden and tense. Humans were the first primate to sleep flat on open ground and survive it. That extra deep sleep may be one reason our brains grew as large as they did. A rested brain thinks better, plans better, and survives longer. But fire alone didn't stop every threat. So humans learned to read the land itself like a warning system. A broken branch meant something heavy had passed through. A silent bird meant a predator was near, because prey animals go quiet in danger. Ancient humans didn't just watch the land. They listened to it, like a language only they had learned to speak. This skill alone likely saved more lives than any spear or blade. Reading danger before it arrived was the first survival technology humans ever built. But predators weren't the only killers. Some of the deadliest threats grew quietly out of the ground. Early humans had no books, no labels, no warnings. Every new plant was a gamble between food and death. So humans developed one of the strangest survival habits in nature: watching what animals refused to eat. If a monkey avoided a fruit, that fruit was probably dangerous. If insects avoided a leaf, that leaf likely carried a hidden toxin. Generation after generation, this knowledge was passed down, not in writing, but in memory. A single mistake could kill an entire family. So plant knowledge became one of the most valuable things a human could own. Even more incredible, some groups learned to use poison as a weapon instead of a threat. Applied to arrow or spear tips, could bring down animals many times a human's size. A creature ancient humans could never outrun or overpower. They simply outsmarted with chemistry. This wasn't luck. This was thousands of years of trial, error, and memory, refined into a science with no name. Fire also solved another deadly problem hidden inside food itself. Cooking killed parasites and bacteria that raw meat carried. It also made food easier to digest, unlocking more energy from every single meal. More energy meant more fuel for the one organ using nearly a quarter of the body's power: the brain. A species that learned to cook its food may have quietly cooked its own intelligence into existence. Predators could be avoided, poison could be studied, but the climate itself was an enemy with no face to fight. Around 100,000 years ago, the planet entered brutal ice age cycles. Temperatures dropped low enough to kill an unprepared human within hours. Entire groups of early humans vanished during these cold stretches. Survival meant one thing: clothing had to evolve, and fast. Early humans learned to scrape animal hides clean using sharpened stone tools. Then, they used bone needles to stitch those hides into fitted clothing. This wasn't a blanket thrown over the shoulders. This was tailored survival gear, shaped to trap body heat in brutal cold. Fitted clothing may be one of the most underrated inventions in human history. It allowed humans to walk into climates that should have killed them instantly. Shelter mattered just as much as clothing. Early humans built structures from branches, bones, and stretched hides. Some shelters were even built using the bones of woolly mammoths. An animal that could kill a human in seconds became the very thing protecting them from the cold. Fire, once again, became the center of everything. A fire inside a shelter meant survival through nights that could otherwise freeze a body solid. Keeping that fire alive became one of the most important jobs in the entire group. If the fire died in the deep cold, the people around it often died with it. So firekeeping wasn't a chore. It was one of the most sacred responsibilities a person could hold. Through ice, wind, and endless dark winters, humans didn't outmatch the cold. They simply refused to let it win. Not every threat came from outside. Some of the deadliest killers were invisible, and they lived inside the body itself. A small cut could turn fatal within days if infection set in. With no antibiotics and no medicine as we know it, humans relied on nature's own pharmacy. Certain plants contained natural antiseptic properties, and ancient humans learned to identify them through observation. Honey, in particular, was prized for its ability to fight infection. Long before modern medicine explained why, humans understood that it worked. Childbirth was an even greater danger. For most of human history, giving birth carried a serious risk of death for both mother and child. So humans did something almost no other primate does. They gave birth with help. Other primate mothers give birth alone, often in silence, hidden from the group. Human mothers didn't have to face that moment by themselves. This single shift, cooperative childbirth, may have saved more lives than any weapon or shelter ever built. Disease traveled differently too, especially as groups grew larger and stayed in one place longer. Humans began to notice patterns. Certain water sources made people sick, while others didn't. Certain foods left too long caused illness that spread through entire camps. This early pattern recognition was, in its own primitive way, the birth of medical science. No microscopes, no understanding of germs, just careful observation, repeated over thousands of years, slowly turning survival into knowledge. If you strip away fire, tools, and clothing, one thing remains at the center of every single survival trick. Other humans. A lone human, no matter how clever, rarely survived long in the ancient world. A connected human, part of a group, had a real chance. Cooperation wasn't a nice bonus. It was the single greatest survival tool our species ever developed. Groups shared food, even when it meant going hungry themselves. Groups shared knowledge, passing down which plants healed and which ones killed. Groups shared warmth, sleeping close together through freezing nights. And groups shared something even more powerful, memory. Stories spoken aloud around firelight carried survival knowledge across generations. A grandmother's warning about a poisonous berry could save a child she would never meet. A story about a flooding river could save a family 100 years later. This is the part almost no one talks about. Humans didn't just survive as individuals. We survived as a species that refused to let knowledge die with a single person. Every fire lit was a lesson passed forward. Every plant identified was a warning passed forward. Every shelter built was a blueprint passed forward. None of it would have mattered without someone willing to share it. This is why isolated humans, even brilliant ones, rarely lasted long in the ancient world. And why connected humans, even ordinary ones, built something that outlasted every predator that ever hunted them. Lions eventually stopped being a daily threat. Ice ages eventually ended. But the habit of protecting each other never faded at all. Look around at the modern world for a moment. Every hospital exists because someone once treated a wound with crushed plants and careful hands. Every warm coat exists because someone once stitched a hide together with a bone needle. Every shared meal exists because someone once chose to feed a stranger instead of themselves. We call these things ordinary now. They were once the difference between life and death. Every human alive today is descended from someone who never gave up, even when everything wanted them dead. Not the strongest, not the fastest, not even the smartest individual, simply the ones who learned to survive together. They read the land when no map existed. They tested poison until they understood medicine. They built fire until the cold no longer ruled them. They shared everything until sharing became survival itself. None of it was guaranteed. All of it was earned. Every single one of us carries that story inside us, whether we remember it or not. The world once wanted us dead. We simply refused, one insane, impossible trick at a time.